So I made another candle with my beeswax. I haven't even trimmed the wick yet. And it's already about 20 past 4. Because I was making a Swiss roll. But I've made it with almonds. Ground almonds instead of flour. It's cracked quite a lot. Because there isn't as much structure in almonds. I couldn't find a recipe either. I wanted to try to make it with ground almonds instead of flour to see what it was like. So I couldn't find a recipe anywhere. So I looked it up on Google. Can you make a Swiss roll with ground almonds instead of flour? And it said yes, but you need to adjust the amount of almonds because of different rates of absorbency and so on. So since I couldn't find a recipe, I had no idea how to adjust it. But I had a recipe for Tarta de Santiago. So that's what I've used just to make a Swiss roll with. And because it hasn't got as much structure, even though it was still hot and very moist, it was cracking straight away. I've literally just taken it out of the oven a few seconds ago because it takes ages to beat the eggs and the sugar together because it's got no raisin agent in it. The only ingredients are sugar, eggs and flour normally, but I use ground almonds instead. So I'll see what it tastes like anyway. And maybe I'll find a recipe for it one day, who knows. I like Tarta de Santiago anyway, so it'll taste like that I expect, except it's got jam in it. Anyway, I'm just going to read a little bit in my book today. So, that book, San Juan de la Cruz y el Islam, I found online in Internet Archive or something like that. And actually, I'm pretty sure that the book I've got is a revised edition that has more information in it. And examples of Arabic text. And in that book, there was some pictures. The one online, I mean, there was some pictures of Arabic text, but I'm pretty sure there was a lot more Arabic, like actually Arabic script, in the book that I saw, which was, I bought it around the year 2000, I think, and it was very new then. I mean, obviously the book was new because I just bought it, but I think it was a revised edition, whereas that one looks like an older edition to me. I don't think it's got as much information in it. So hopefully they'll bring my book back sometime and I can have a look in it. Very interesting. Well, let me see what time it is and I'll talk a bit. Right, I'll talk for 2 minutes. Because Spain has a unique history in Europe, being part of a Muslim empire, I suppose you could say, for a really long time, like 800 years, at least parts of Spain. Which is a sore subject in Spain. So there's aspects of the study of Spanish history that are a little sensitive, and you never find Spanish people talking about them. And it's not a coincidence that this work was undertaken in Mexico and not in Spain. So it's highly probable, in my opinion, that the mother of St. John of the Cross was from a family of converts from Islam. And there's several reasons for that, one of which is her trade. She was a silk weaver. This is a Muslim occupation. You never found Christians doing things like that. And the second is that his father was from a quite wealthy family of cloth merchants. And he was disinherited for marrying Catalina Alvarez. And they ended up moving from the town. I can't remember whether she moved first. I think they moved after they got married. There was such a stigma attached to it, you say. And so he was so in love with the mother of St. John of the Cross that he took being disinherited by his pretty wealthy family in order to marry her. And then after he died, she never married again. Now, there's two possible reasons for that. I mean, I suppose there's a lot of possible reasons, but I'm just going to give two. One is that she was so in love with him and the fact that he'd left his family for her, that nobody could ever replace him. And the other one is that perhaps no one would have married her anyway because of this stigma attached to being descended from Muslims. So I haven't got any evidence one way or another, but I think it's probably the former. Also, Catalina was very good friends with Saint Teresa. I was going to say something else as well. I can't remember what it was now. There's aspects of St. John of the Cross that suggest Muslim ancestry as well, that distinguish him from the general Christian population. Like he was very fastidious about cleanliness, for example, and so washing is a great tradition within Islam, washing before prayer, and that was quite unusual among European Christians at the time. Oh yeah, the other thing was that I can't remember where he was. It might have been in Granada, but he was in some monastery that he'd lived in anyway, and he was doing some building work in the monastery, and another friar came in and said to him, "You love this kind of work so much, you must be the son of a labourer." And he said, "I'm not even the son of a poor labourer, I'm the son of a poor silk weaver." And that was to indicate that he had even lower status than that, like of the lowest status Christian occupation. Because to say, "I'm not even the son of a labourer, I'm the son of a poor silk weaver," was indicating that he had the lowest possible status in Spain at the time, being not only very poor and from the lowest class, but actually being beneath that for being descended from Muslims. And that's the only statement that's recorded that relates to his ancestry. So I did touch on this subject in my thesis, which had a lot to do with his use of the symbolism of night, which is very highly developed in Islam. And for example, it's believed by Muslims that the Quran was dictated during the night of power. So it was kind of in the zeitgeist, if you like, that the time when God communicates is during the night. And I expand on this massively in my thesis, not just in relation to that, I mean, but in relation to other things related to the night, like its symbolism in the Zohar and things like that. Because my argument is that he used the night to symbolise the person of God himself. And so this is why I was particularly interested in Islamic influence on his work. And because I'm not Spanish, I don't care about it. So I'm not sensitive about it. Anyway, I'm just going to read one chapter of my book now because it's quite late. And I don't know if I'll unwrap my Swiss roll yet. It depends if it's cold. It's totally cracked anyway. Even when I picked it up to wrap it better, it cracked like lengthwise as well. So you can certainly say that almonds don't hold it together as well as flour. So my next experiment with it, I think, will be using a combination of both. Chapter 4. The imperfections of lust, the third capital vice, usually found in beginners. 1. A number of these beginners have many more imperfections in each vice than those I am mentioning. But to avoid prolixity, I am omitting them and touching on some principal ones that are, as it were, the origin of the others. As for the vice of lust, aside from what it means for spiritual persons to fall into this vice, since my intent is to treat of the imperfections that have to be purged by means of the dark night, spiritual persons have numerous imperfections, many of which can be called spiritual lust, not because the lust is spiritual, but because it proceeds from spiritual things. It happens frequently that in a person's spiritual exercises themselves, without the person being able to avoid it, impure movements will be experienced in the sensory part of the soul, and even sometimes when the spirit is deep in prayer, or when receiving the sacraments of penance or the Eucharist. These impure feelings arise from any of three causes outside of one's control. And the footnote says, for a fuller treatment of related material, compare Ascent 3, 21 to 23. 2. First, they often proceed from the pleasure human nature finds in spiritual exercises. Since both the spiritual and the sensory part of the soul receive gratification from that refreshment, each part experiences delight according to its own nature and properties. The spirit, the superior part of the soul, experiences renewal and satisfaction in God and in the sense. Experiences renewal and satisfaction in God. And the sense, the lower part, feels sensory gratification and delight because it is ignorant of how to get anything else, and hence takes whatever is nearest, which is the impure sensory satisfaction. It may happen that while the soul is with God in deep spiritual prayer, it will conversely, passively experience sensual, rebellious movements and acts in the senses, not without its own great displeasure. This frequently happens at the time of communion, since the soul receives joy and gladness in this act of love. For the Lord grants the grace and gives himself for this reason. The sensory part also takes its share, as we said, according to its mode. Since, after all, these two parts form one suppositum, each one usually shares, according to its mode, in what the other receives. As the philosopher says, whatever is received according to the mode of the receiver. The footnote here says, this axiom, as such, has not been found in Aristotle. Aquinas makes use of it several times, for example in Summa Theologia 1:79-6. The principle is important in John's teaching. Then it gives some examples. Because in the initial stages of the spiritual life, and even more advanced ones, the sensory part of the soul is imperfect, God's Spirit is frequently received in this sensory part with this same imperfection. Once the sensory part is reformed through the purgation of the dark night, it no longer has these infirmities. Then the spiritual part of the soul, rather than the sensory part, receives God's Spirit, and the soul thus receives everything according to the mode of the Spirit. 3. The second origin of these rebellions is the devil, to bring disquietude and disturbance on a soul when it is praying, or trying to pray. He endeavours to excite impure feelings in the sensory part, and if people pay any attention to these, the devil does them great harm. Through fear some souls grow slack in their prayer, which is what the devil wants, in order to struggle against these movements. And others give it up entirely, for they think these feelings come while they are engaged in prayer, rather than at other times. And this is true because the devil excites these feelings while the souls are at prayer, instead of when they are engaged in other works, so that they might abandon prayer. And that is not all. To make them cowardly and afraid, he brings vividly to their minds foul and impure thoughts, and sometimes the thoughts will concern spiritually helpful things and persons. Those who attribute any importance to such thoughts, therefore, do not even dare look at anything or think about anything, lest they thereupon stumble into them. These impure thoughts so affect people who are afflicted with melancholia that one should have great pity for them. Indeed, these people suffer a sad life. In some who are troubled with this bad humour, the trial reaches such a point that they clearly feel that the devil has access to them without their having the freedom to prevent it. Yet some of these melancholiacs are able through intense effort and struggle to forestall this power of the devil. If these impure thoughts and feelings arise from melancholia, Individuals are not ordinarily freed from them until they are cured of that humour, unless they enter the dark night, which in time deprives them of everything. The footnote here says the term melancholia or melancholy was used for the whole gamut of emotional disturbances believed to be caused by an excess of black bile. 4. The third origin from which these impure feelings usually proceed and wage war on the soul is the latter's fear of them. The fear that springs up at the sudden remembrance of these thoughts, caused by what one sees, is dealing with or thinking of, produces impure feelings without the person being at fault. 5. Some people are so delicate when gratification is received spiritually or in prayer, they immediately experience a lust that so inebriates them and caresses their senses that they become, as it were, engulfed in the delight and satisfaction of that vice. And this experience continues passively with the other. Sometimes these individuals become aware that certain impure and rebellious acts have taken place. The reason for such occurrences is that since these natures are, as I say, delicate and tender, their humours and blood are stirred up by any change. These persons also experience such feelings when they are inflamed with anger or are agitated by some other disturbance or affliction. 6. Sometimes too in their spiritual conversations or works they manifest a certain sprightliness and gallantry on considering who is present, and they carry on with a kind of vain satisfaction. Such behaviour is also a byproduct of spiritual lust, in the way we here understand it, which generally accompanies complacency of the will. 7. Some spiritually acquire a liking for other individuals that often arises from lust rather than from the spirit. This lustful origin will be recognised if, on recalling that affection, there is remorse of conscience, not an increase in the remembrance and love of God. The affection is purely spiritual if the love of God grows when it grows, or if the love of God is remembered as often as the affection is remembered, or if the affection gives the soul a desire for God, if by growing in one the soul grows also in the other. For this is a trait of God's Spirit. The good increases with the good, since there is likeness in conformity between them. But when the love is born of this sensual vice, it has the contrary effects. As the one love grows greater, the other lessens, and the remembrance of it lessens too. If the inordinate love increases, then, as will be seen, the soul grows cold in the love of God, and, because of the recollection of that other love, forgets him, not without feeling some remorse of conscience. On the other hand, as the love of God increases, the soul grows cold in the inordinate affection and comes to forget it. For not only do these loves fail to benefit each other, but since they are contrary loves, the predominating one, while becoming stronger itself, stifles and extinguishes the other, as the philosophers say. Hence our Saviour proclaimed in the Gospel, "That which is born of flesh is flesh, and that which is born of spirit is spirit." John 3:6. That is, love derived from sensuality terminates in sensuality, and the love that is of the Spirit terminates in the Spirit of God, and brings it increase. And this, then, is the difference between these two loves, which enables us to discern one from the other. 8. When the soul enters the dark night, all these loves are placed in reasonable order. This night strengthens and purifies the love that is of God, and takes away and destroys the other. But in the beginning it causes the soul to lose sight of both of them, as will be explained. That's the end of the chapter. What's the time? 16:37. I remembered the other thing I was going to say that I forgot. So I was talking about John's father abandoning his family, being thrown out of his family and disinherited for marrying his mother. And so some people have said, well, St. John of the Cross was a friar. He was a lifelong celibate. How could he possibly write such amazing love poetry. And some people have pointed out that he did have an experience of it indirectly because of the life of his parents. And I'm sure his mother was telling him about all of this because his father wasn't there anymore. So he didn't even see, like, he didn't even see married life firsthand between his parents. He heard an idealised version of it from his mother, no doubt. So that's the point that other people have made. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.